My name is Alex. I am 21 years old. I live in Meerut, a city in India. I am doing my graduation in BA. I live with my parents and younger sister. I don't go out much. I like to sit alone sometimes. I like to write small poems. I write in a notebook. I never showed my poems to anyone. I go to college every day. One day my life changed. It was a normal Tuesday. I was going to college on my bike. I reached early that day. The classroom was half empty. I sat on the second bench. I took out my notebook. I started writing something. Suddenly a girl came and sat next to me. I looked at her. She was new. I had never seen her before. She smiled at me. I smiled back. She said, "Hi, I'm Lily." I said, "Hi, I'm Alex," she said. "Is this the BA second-year class?" I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Thank you." She looked around. She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "What are you writing?" I closed my notebook. I felt shy. I said, "Just something not important." She said, "Can I read?" I said, "No, I mean it's not good." She smiled and said, "I like poems." My heart started beating fast. No one ever asked to read my poems. I said, "Maybe later." She said, "Okay." The teacher came in. We all stood up. The class started, but my mind was not in the class. I was thinking about her. After the class, she stood up. She looked at me again. She said, "See you tomorrow." I nodded. She left. I sat there for a few minutes. I felt strange. I felt happy. That whole day I was smiling. My friends noticed. One friend said, "Why are you smiling like a fool?" I said nothing, but it was not nothing. Something had started. I didn't know what, but I liked the feeling. I went home. I sat on my bed. I opened my notebook. I wrote a poem. It was about her smile. I called it "The Smile on the First Day." I didn't know if I would show it to her. Next day, I went to college early again. I waited. She came. She sat next to me again. I opened my notebook. I wrote a poem. It was about her smile. I called it "The Smile on the First Day." I didn't know if I would show it to her. Next day, I went to college early again. I waited. She came. She sat next to me again. She said, "Good morning." I said, "Good morning." She asked, "Did you bring your notebook?" I smiled. I said, "Yes." She said, "Can I read one poem?" I gave her the notebook. She read the poem. She smiled again. She said, "This is so sweet." My cheeks turned red. I looked down. She said, "You are a good writer." I said, "Thank you." That whole day I felt light. I started waiting for college every day. I liked talking to her. She was kind. She laughed easily. She made me feel seen. Days passed. We became friends. We started talking more. I started writing more. All my poems were about her now. Every day I waited to see her. She also started waiting for me. She would look for me in class. We always sat together. She brought a small diary one day. She said, "I also write sometimes." I was surprised. I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, but I never showed anyone." I smiled and said, "Same here." She gave me her diary. I read her poem. It was about rain. It was beautiful. I looked at her and said, "You write from your heart." She blushed. I returned her diary. I said, "Your words feel soft like rain." She smiled deeply. That moment felt special. I didn't want it to end. After some days, we started going to the canteen together. We sat on the same bench every time. She always ordered tea. I liked coffee. One day she said, "Let me try your coffee." She made a face after tasting it. I laughed loudly. She said, "It's so bitter." I said, "You're sweet, so you don't like bitter things." She laughed too. We talked about everything. Family, friends, childhood. Dreams and fears too. She told me her father was in the army. She missed him a lot. I told her my father was a teacher. She said, then you must be good at studies. I said, not really. We both laughed. She once said, do you believe in magic? I said, maybe. Why? She said, because this friendship feels like magic. I felt something inside my chest. It was warm. I wanted to tell her how I felt, but I was scared. What if she didn't feel the same? I kept quiet. I wrote another poem. It was called The Girl with the Rainy Eyes. I didn't give it to her. I just kept it safe. One day, it started raining after college. We didn't have umbrellas. We ran and laughed in the rain. Her hair got wet. My shirt was soaked. She held my hand for balance. That was the first time she touched me. My heart jumped. We stood under a small tree. We looked at each other. The rain was falling like music. She said, do you like the rain now? I said, I love it now. She smiled. I wanted to say, I love you, but my lips didn't move. My eyes said it, I think. She looked into my eyes. She said nothing. But something passed between us. The next day she didn't come. I waited. I felt empty. The day after that, she came back. I asked, are you okay? She said, I was just tired. I felt better. I wanted to tell her everything. But again I stayed silent. Weeks passed. We grew closer. One evening we walked near the lake. The sunset was orange and pink. She said, this is my favorite time. I said, mine too. She looked at me. I looked at her. My heart said, now say it. I opened my mouth. She said, Alex. I said, yes. She said, I think I like you. My heart stopped for a second. I said, I think I love you. She looked down after saying it. I gently held her hand. She didn't pull it away. The lake shimmered beside us. The silence felt perfect. I said, you have no idea how long I waited to hear this. She smiled softly. We sat by the lake, saying nothing, just feeling everything. The breeze played with her hair. I wanted to freeze that moment, forever. That evening changed something. The next few days felt lighter, brighter. We held hands more often. We shared earphones. One side for her, one for me. Music never felt so close. She sang along sometimes. I listened to her voice more than the song. We made silly videos, laughed at old pictures. Time was moving fast. But I didn't care. I was happy. One day, she said, I might have to leave soon. I froze. Why? I asked. Dad got transferred again, she said. My heart dropped. When? I whispered. In 2 weeks, she replied. I couldn't speak. She looked sad. I held her hand tighter. Can we meet every day till then? I asked. She nodded. Those 2 weeks became a lifetime. We did everything: picnics, long walks, street food, ice cream even in winter. We laughed more, cried sometimes too, but we never stopped holding hands. One night she said, promise me something. Anything, I said. Promise me you'll write every day after I go. I nodded. Promise me you won't forget me. I said, how can I forget the rain? Her eyes filled, mine too. The last day came. I stood at the station with her. Her train was late. We sat on a cold bench. She rested her head on my shoulder. Will you miss me? She asked. Every second, I replied. She didn't speak for a while. Then she said, I think I love you too. I looked at her. My heart melted. I kissed her forehead. The train arrived. People rushed. She stood up slowly. This is it, she said. I couldn't speak. I just hugged her tight. She walked away with tears. I stood still, watching. She turned back one last time. She smiled, I waved. And the train took her away, just like that. I stayed at the station for hours, watching empty tracks, holding her memory, in my chest, in my breath. In every heartbeat, I went home, I wrote that night. I titled it, The Girl Who Took My Reign, and every day after that, I wrote again. Poem after poem, until my notebook was full of her. And the love we built, in just 60 seconds of a lifetime. The days felt long without her. I missed her voice, I missed her smile. I missed everything, but we talked on the phone every night before sleeping. Her voice made me calm. She told me about her new city. She said it was big, full of noise and people, but she didn't like it much. She missed our college. She missed the lake, she missed me. That made me smile. I said, we'll meet soon, she asked. When? I said, as soon as I can. I started saving money. I stopped going out with friends. I walked instead of taking rickshaws. I ate simple food. All I wanted was to meet her. She said, you're mad. I said, mad in love. She laughed. She always laughed at my jokes. That laugh was music. One night she cried. I asked why. She said, I feel alone. I wanted to hold her, but I could not. I said, close your eyes. She said, okay. I said, I am sitting next to you. I am holding your hand. I am not going anywhere. She was silent. Then she said, thank you. I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. Those words made my night. The next month, I had saved enough. I told her, I am coming. She screamed with joy. I booked a train ticket. It was a long journey. But my heart was light. I reached her city. She was waiting at the station. She saw me and ran to me. We hugged tightly. People were watching. But we didn't care. Her eyes were full of tears, happy tears. She said, I missed you so much. I said, me too. We walked around her city. She showed me her favorite park, her new college, her favorite tea shop. Everything felt nice because she was with me. We sat in the park. She rested her head on my shoulder. I held her hand. She said, promise me something. I said, anything. She said, never leave me. I looked into her eyes. I said, never. She smiled. That moment was forever. I stayed for 3 days. We spent every moment together. When I left, she cried again. I kissed her forehead. I said, soon we'll be together forever. She said, I will wait. I returned with a full heart. I wrote about our meeting, every little moment. I turned it into a poem. I called it The Journey. I sent it to her. She said, you make words feel alive. I said, you make life beautiful. Days turned into months. We kept talking, we kept loving. Distance didn't matter. Hearts stayed close. One evening, I got a message. It said, can we talk? My heart sank. I called her. She was silent. I asked, what's wrong? She said, Papa. Got a new job offer? I asked, where? She said, very far, another country. My heart dropped. I couldn't speak. She said, they want a shift next month. Asked, are you going too? She said, I don't want to. But I knew she would. She loved her family. I felt cold. I felt lost. I said, we'll talk every day. She said, time zones are different. I said, still, we will try. She didn't speak. Just stayed silent. That silence said a lot. Days passed, we still talked. But not like before. Something had changed. One day she didn't pick up my call. Next day she messaged, sorry, I was busy. I replied, it's okay, but it wasn't okay. Her replies got shorter. Her voice felt distant. I kept holding on. One night she said, "We need to talk." My hand started shaking. I said, "Okay." She said, "This long distance is hard." I said, "Yes, but love can win." She said, "I feel tired." I said, "Please don't give up." She said, "Maybe we need space." That broke me. I sat in silence. She waited for me to say something. I said, "If space makes you happy, then I'll step back." She said, "I'm sorry." I said, "Me too." The call ended, so did my world. I cried that night. I cried like a child. For days, I didn't talk Tonion. I stopped writing. I stopped smiling. I stopped everything. One evening, I went to the lake. The same lake where it all began. I sat there alone. The breeze touched my face. I closed my eyes. I heard her laughter in the wind. I whispered, "I still love you." And then I smiled. A weak, broken smile. Months passed. Pain turned into memory. Memory turned into strength. I started writing again. I wrote a new poem called A Love Story in 60 Seconds. I wrote every word from my heart. Every line was real. Every moment was true. I shared it online. Many people read it. Some cried. Some smiled. Some saw themselves in my words. I didn't write for fame. I wrote to heal. I still miss her. I still think of her. But I let her go. Because real love is not about holding. It's about giving. She gave me a story. A beautiful, true story. And I gave her all my heart. Maybe she will read this someday. Maybe she will smile. Or maybe she won't. But I will always remember. A girl who changed my life. In just one moment, in just one smile. In just 60 seconds, my first love. My only love. And my forever poem. This is my story. A real story. And I lived every second of it. The end.